We have more than 7 crore MSMEs in India today.
30 years back when we started our careers, there was hardly any credit for MSMEs. So we were not having credit. Today, you see 58% of the total registered MSMEs are actually accessing formal credit. It's a great number. It's a great number today. And there is a huge scope.
Other public sector bank and private bank and even fintechs are focusing on credit. But still we see a credit gap. There is a huge credit gap. You also mentioned how critical it is for MSMEs when it comes to the relation between growth and the credit. MSMEs form backbone of Indian economy. From traditional craftspeople to cutting-edge startups today, they not only are self-sufficient but also support larger industries. They support good portion of Indian population when it comes to employment, and when it comes to their contribution to GDP, they also pave the way for more inclusive and sustainable credit growth. Now, in 2026, India is slated to surpass Japan as number 3 GDP in the world, and MSMEs will continue to play a crucial part if that has to happen. TransUnion CIBIL along with CIBIL, we have published MSME Pulse report, which also talks about how credit portfolio for MSMEs have improved, and same goes for asset quality. But at the same time, we also see that credit demand needs to pick up for MSMEs. Lastly, at TransUnion CIBIL, we continue to play a very important role as catalyst to provide that sustained growth in credit to MSMEs. And in the same initiative, we launched new improved credit vision CMR this year. Now this CVCMR also paves way for lenders to more objectively take those lending decisions, also look at a wider population which comes under CVCMR, and take low risky decisions when it comes to approving loans for MSMEs as such. To understand the trends in MSME sector and to help us get deep insights into this sector, we have a very special guest with us today. We have Mr. Rajagopalan, Executive Director for Bank of India. Let's start with some questions.
Thank you, Bhushan.
So, sir, first of all, it's our privilege to have you on our show. And to start with the question, I think one of the broad questions that everybody has on their mind is around how MSME sector as a sector is shaping up and broad trends which are emerging in MSME sector today. There is a lot happening in this space. So, would you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so thank you, Bhushan, once again for having me here. See, MSME as such, if you look at, I'll just take a little time in tracing the history of this MSME and ancillary industries in this country. See, originally the MSMEs were used to be regulated through Industries Development Regulation Act 1951, which used to be a kind of paying only lip service to small industries and micro enterprises. Those days it used to be called ancillary industries.
Okay.
The idea was to basically actually serve as an ancillary units for big time public sector undertakings. So the seminal change that has happened in MSME is through passing of an MSMED Act in 2006, which facilitated MSME as a focus area for government as well as for the entire economy. So from there, if you look at the journey today, you have almost 7 crore enterprises,
Absolutely,
including the unincorporated enterprises to be very precise. And then out of them, the greatest thing that has been done in this during the last decade is basically having a registration and then formalization of MSME focus for formalization of MSME is something that really did wonders for many of the MSMEs. If you see today, almost 6 crores plus have been formalized. They are on Udyami registration portal. Some of them are on Udyami assist portal. So you could actually see, and their visibility has grown. Now, this is actually a kind of inflection point for MSMEs. That's what I see. In the next decade, we see many of the micro enterprises basically migrating to small enterprises and small becoming medium. Another heartening thing that is happening in the country, if you see, is unincorporated enterprises, especially proprietary enterprises, which used to dominate the MSME space, good old days, including self-employment kind of enterprises. Now we see a lot of traction in terms of corporatization of MSMEs. You have 23% of the MSMEs today corporatized, and there are a lot of LLPs coming. There are firms also coming, which are basically, a lot of visibility is coming in terms of their accounts, their formalization, in terms of their cash flows visibility is coming, as well as their regulatory filing visibility is coming. So naturally, the inflection point that we are talking today will actually see a huge growth in terms of this one. So another thing is today, as you rightly said, almost 30% of the GDP is contributed by MSME today, 45% of the exports. So, but there are a lot of bottlenecks around and a lot of things around ease of doing business for MSMEs, which is a great focus for government. Government is doing great things. If you see some of the programs the government is doing, like cluster development programs, RAM, World Bank assisted RAM programs, Spurti for traditional industries, they are doing wonderfully well. The number of projects that are approved, the number of projects that are actually being given, skill development program is given a lot of importance, and enterprise development programs are given a lot of importance by government. So this actually would help MSA take off. And of course, you are there anyway, looking at their credit histories and then making them bankable. See, I can tell you, I am very happy to say that almost 20 years back, 30 years back, when we started our careers, there was hardly any credit for MSMEs. So we were not having credit. Today, you see 58% of the total registered MSMEs are actually accessing formal credit. It's a great number. It's a great number today. And there is a huge scope. We'll continue to have, and people are talking about how to make them bankable. What kind of credit models and should be brought to actually increase the access to credit for MSME. Today, everybody is talking about that. That itself would actually take MSME to great heights. So I am looking forward to these MSMEs becoming one of the big contributors to this one. They make a very great contribution to especially the economy as such. You see MSMEs across this sector today. You don't look at nuts and bolts kind of MSMEs today. You see across the sectors. You have in services, you have in trade, you have in manufacturing, and even very critical sector like defense MSMEs are there.
Yes.
So that is one thing that really good. So that's what my view is. So I am very, very, very positive and then gung-ho about the MSME space.
Absolutely. And thank you. The history, the first part that you mentioned was amazing. But one question that I had was MSMEs and their growth. Credit paves a road to their growth, and they continue to face the challenges, right? How do you think that what are the kind of challenges that MSME is facing even today when it comes to credit, and especially when lenders have to address that need for credit? And as I spoke about Transient CIBIL's initiatives and our new enhanced credit vision CMR tool, how do you think that can play a critical role?
So that's great question to be. See at Bank of India. Now first let me talk about Bank of India on this. How do you actually, what do I do in terms of increasing the access to credit to MSME? See, I firmly believed, when I started looking at the MSME space, I have been looking at it, of course, very closely as a director on the board today. I'm looking at it. What I have done basically is, I realized saying that MSMEs cannot do, they cannot actually understand traditional way of lending that traditional banks do. Typically, working capital finance, assessment of working capital finance, term loan finance, and project reports, viability reports. They don't understand the model that many of the traditional banks follow. But the problem here is, traditional banks continue to follow the same kind of models, whether it is private bank or public bank, and they are constrained by their own habituated to lending in that way. They don't want to change. So what basically I looked at was the traditional models that we are talking about actually should become a kind of tailor-made products.
Got it.
So instead of basically telling them, saying that you bring this data about your profit and loss account, balance sheet and all that, I'll just simply tell him saying that you are welcome, you come, Actually, we have got a product called Welcome Offer. We are just welcoming them. So what we look at is basically a CMR store, nothing else. We will not see anything else. We have a gating criteria of CMR 5 for the purpose of getting him coming. He will come inside, and then we'll be with him for some time. We offer up to 50 crores in that product without asking questions. We'll actually look at his cash flows and all everything. That is for internal purposes. Basically, gating criteria is nothing but CMR1. We just look at him and then give him that limit and then monitor him. Over a period of 6 months, we learn about him. We have account statement analysis. We have other surrogate data that is available with us. So we don't ask any questions. We don't ask many documents to him. So once he is welcome, then actually we handhold him and take him forward. That's how we designed the products. So like that, we have designed the products across the segments of MSME.
Okay.
So whether it is manufacturing, trade, services, and within the services also we have specific products. If you want some loan for plant and machinery, he has. If he wants a vehicle loan, he has. If he wants a loan for basically purchasing a land, he has. So these kind of very small segmentation of the traditional credit models that we have done, which has helped us actually reach a very good goal. Today, if you look at my proportion of MSME loans to the total loans, I am already touching almost 20%.
Wow.
So this is what we have been doing. And of course, it is not unique to Bank of India. So many of them have understood in the sector that so they also started actually replicating many of the models. And that across the spectrum, they want to give only product-based lending. Easy to do that. Now what happens is, today we also realize as bankers saying that we are competing with fintechs. And the fintech has got so their turnaround time for giving a loan is hardly 10 to 15 days. Whereas, we take almost 120 days in the traditional models. So the idea is how to reduce this 120 days of TAT, that, to consider a loan to 10 days, 15 days, so that, we give immediately the loan that they desire. So that's what we are doing. We are doing a lot of enablers in terms of actually bringing them on board and giving them very easy to understand kind of products so that they can avail loan and go ahead. So that is one reason the credit is growing very consistently. Even if you see 5 years back, we were not even at 19 lakh crores in terms of MSME universe. Today we are at 32 lakh crores. And still we say that we have an unmet credit demand and we are doing very well. So there is a huge phenomenal growth that has happened in these 5 years in terms of access to credit. That's the reason why, again, to repeat at the cost of repetition, you have 58% people are. The only thing that I have is, even today, the credit active customers, according to CIBIL report as well as the other, is only hardly 94 lakhs. So there is a huge scope for credit active customers. So there is a lot of things that we can do. We continue to do. And we also actively listen to them, what kind of products they want. So we have interaction with MSME associations. We go to the MSME clusters and ask them what kind of problems they have, what kind of need they have. So most of them have the many complaints about regulatory issues and the local licensing issues. That's what, those things, of course, government is working very actively in actually doing a single window clearance type of thing. So that will also help going forward. So they are doing a lot of work in terms of actually on the clearances and regulatory side. So once that is also in place, and along with the tailor-made products, we see though the major problem of MSME, because the refrain of most of the MSME, the moment you ask them what is your problem, they say access to credit. I don't get enough credit. So this can be solved over a period of 2 to 3 years. That's what I feel. And I see a great opportunity there.
Absolutely. It was heartening to see the various initiatives of Bank of India. And in fact, my next question would have been that, but you anticipated it. And, the way I see it is, I think the customization for MSMEs, the use of technology, and the focus on MSMEs as a very important sector. You also spoke about almost 20% of loans across Bank of India portfolio now are dedicated to MSMEs as such. So all this is, great to see. So in a nutshell, Bank of India is focusing on MSMEs as such.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to overall size of the MSMEs. You also mentioned a very critical number. We have more than 7 crore MSMEs in India today. On Bureau, sir, we see near about 3.5 crore MSMEs who have ever been reported on the Credit Bureau. And out of that, close to more than 9 million MSMEs are credit active. That means they are servicing a live loan. So there is always a potential for a growth, and banks like you, Bank of India, also other public sector bank and private bank, and even fintechs are focusing on credit. But still we see a credit gap, right, for MSMEs, and there is a huge credit gap. You also mentioned how critical it is for MSMEs when it comes to their growth and the relation between growth and the credit. So if you have money, you are able to grow, you are able to invest in various initiatives. So what are the different, so I was speaking about the challenges that MSME is facing, but I want to tweak it a little bit. What are the different ways that MSMEs can, let's say, enhance their, opportunities to get that credit? I see through various forums when we have discussed, there seems to be continuous, issues around formalization of, some documents. So the document availability of documentation for which is required, as part of a credit assessment is something which is a challenge. Firmographic details are a challenge, or even the, information regarding the previous credit taken. Sometimes it is from unorganized sector. Those are the kind of challenges. So what do you think, which are the challenges that MSMEs can look at, and is there any advice that you want to leave MSMEs with to make them credit ready?
See, basically, there are two. To be very precise, both have to change. The lenders also have to change their perspective, and the MSMEs also have to kind of help in terms of changing the perspective. See, today what is happening is assessment of credit requirement of any unit is in a traditional lending is basically based on the past record. So what kind of turnover you have, what kind of the raw materials and current assets and current liabilities you have, this kind of approach. Basically the approach was it centered around the fact that how do I actually fund a manufacturing MSME
or unit,
unit. Now today what happens is manufacturing is not predominant in this country. You have services, you have trade.
Yes.
There are no models, credit models that actually address this trade and services.
New emerging.
And you have almost 60% of the the whole sector in services today. We don't have any credit models for 60% of that, and they also don't know how to actually access credit. They also require credit if they want to actually scale. So these are some issues we face. And as you rightly said, informal credit that they take from the market. So if you look at, even today it comprises 12% of the total credit requirement of MSMEs. It's a huge number.
It is.
So, and then most of them are basically kind of money lenders or family, friends, relatives. So basic problem there is the margins that bank requires in terms of skin in the game kind of approach that the traditional banks have. Most of the banks, to be very precise, have this. So you put your money so that I can put your money.
Yes.
So basically there is no venture capital kind of funding that MSMEs get to start. If you look at one thing that I can actually, kind of being partial to public sector banks, I can always say that if you see the growth, if you see the whole life cycle of MSMEs, there is a startup phase, there is a growth phase, and there is actually a sustenance phase that you have. So there are 4 phases that we talk about in MSME, basically. So in all these phases, from startup to sustenance, you find PSB is very active.
Yeah.
But many of the banks, they come either in the growth phase or stability phases that we talk about.
Yeah.
So they don't actually give startup phase. Everybody who's actually, if they want to enter as a lender in the startup level, they say that what kind of collateral you can offer.
Correct.
So most of the banks today, or traditional lenders today, they prefer to give an asset-backed loan. Okay, not a cash flow based loan to start with, because cash flows cannot be assessed at the beginning. Therefore, it is better I take a collateral and give a loan, let him start, let him continue, and then we will go. So basically what is happening is, so there is a need for alternative models. Now alternative models, the best way that MSMEs can actually look at is today, if they digitize very fast and come on board in terms of e-commerce platforms. See, today e-commerce platforms are not restricted to only consumer markets. It is even manufacturing. You find everywhere. It is business to business, business to consumer.
Yes.
Okay, business to supplier. Everywhere it is there. So this digitization is very important. So once digitization happens across the MSMEs, they start availing. See, if you look at, digitization is also happening very fast in MSME. I should not be saying that, there it is not happening. If you look at digitization today, 18% of the MSMEs have used digital tools for their business, whether it is accounting tool or any other tool, including cash flow tools they use.
Yes, they have.
So there is a visibility once they get in terms of their purchase orders, in terms of their sales invoices, and then the cash flows. Today what is happening is most of the banks look at their account statements for the purpose of cash flows. I don't have a verifiable way of looking at the purchase orders. So if you look at overseas, purchase order funding is something a very good way of alternate finance. Many of them do. So they do a kind of almost 25% of the purchase orders they fund. So that is one thing that that we can actually think of. For that, you need to create enough digital records. So the e-commerce platforms you should be on. So once you are on, say for example, I have 1 month sales. To the extent of 1 month sales, I can fund 25%. So this is possible. Otherwise, what is happening is most of the banks, they are reluctant because these documents, except the declaration, nothing is available. So
Yes.
if I want to know MSME what kind of business he is doing, so I only take a declaration to give a loan. So by taking a declaration and giving a loan can only happen to small tickets.
Yes.
So we cannot actually scale it up. If you want to scale it up, there should be a public record, verifiable method of actually looking at his businesses and turnovers. So best way is to actually get them digitized, give them more data in terms of their business, and then once I get the visibility of their businesses, then it becomes easy for them to access credit in a better manner, and they can even bargain better in terms of interest rates, in terms of services and all that. Today, everybody is thinking in terms of, as a lender, I also think in terms of giving, looking at what kind of value-added services I can give to MSMEs. Because I also need visibility in terms of how his business is, what kind of loans sales he's getting, where is he procuring raw material from, is there any supply chain constraints, and demand side, how is he performing. So I need a visibility. If I need visibility, I need to actually integrate myself with his systems. So that we are also looking very actively. Of course, there are a lot of fintechs who are working around it. And we have also come to terms with the fact that we are ready to give as a kind of freebie to MSMEs, because if you want MSMEs to invest in IT, they cannot invest. It's a small units. Even banks are finding it difficult to make huge investments in IT. So what we are saying is, we will give an app which can do an accounting service. We will give you an app which can trace all the purchase orders and actually give us a consolidated view of purchase orders, where I have an access. UPI payments is something that I can actually look at in terms of what kind of payments he is getting. I do some analysis of UPI payments. So UPI data is also available with me. So a lot of things are happening around how to increase the credit access to MSMEs. So MSMEs also can do well to digitize and actually participate in the more and more formalization of credit, which they are doing, of course. The very fact that looking at Udyami registration itself shows that formalization, they are very happy. They are ready to come on board and do. So that's what my view is.
So many insights, and I was just trying to make some notes. If you are a MSME, formalization is key. Go for that Udyam registration, digitize, create footprint around different processes that you have within the MSMEs. And very important is record keeping and creating a track, even if it is informal finance that you have availed. How do you keep a track of it? I think these are the steps that you will help. I think that's something that I can make of. And the other important aspect that you also mentioned is lender participation. They also have to understand the new emerging, ecosystem and change the way they, look at underwriting, these MSMEs as such. Brilliant insights, sir. And what also, stood out is if MSMEs are able to do this, they not only can get avail credit, but also on their own terms and on
Yes.
better terms, which stood out for me. Lastly, we discussed that this is a focus area. MSMEs are critical when it comes to India's growth, when it comes to generating more employment, when it comes to economic growth, and our aspiration of Vikasit Bharat by 2047, our aspiration of playing critical role in global economic stage. And like we said earlier, India is slated to become the third largest economy, so MSMEs have to grow. So, as an ending note, would you like to leave a message, in terms of for MSMEs to continue to grow and have that inclusive and sustainable growth and continue to play critical role? What are the few things that has to happen both from MSMEs and government side? We have discussed a lot, but anything that you
See,
think?
basically, the government is already doing a lot of things. So, to be very precise, the cluster development program has really picked up, and then there is a need to scale it up in terms of infrastructure. See, whenever you go and meet an MSME, look at the kind of bottlenecks they have in terms of doing business. So access to credit is, of course, remains one of the major areas where we have to give, because debt funding is something that that has to come to MSME if they have to grow. Apart from that, there are infrastructure constraints. There are technology challenges. They are not able to invest huge amounts of money on technology, and there are skill related challenges. They don't get people because they are not able to pay a good amount of paychecks. So naturally, they don't get good skilled labor. So there is a need for accessing this, making them access the especially labor markets better. So that is one thing that the government is already working. Of course, they will work more. They have a very beautiful. They have done a wonderful work in terms of actually having portals. So they are doing wonderful work. They have a Sampark portal.
Yes.
So they have a Samadhan portal for grievance redressal. That is one great thing the government has done. When Mr. Gadkari was the MSME minister, we had an opportunity to actually tell him these are all the big issues. So from there came the Samadhan portal. Today, 12,000 crores plus dues have been cleared on a regular basis this year. On a continuous basis, every year,
What a great
they are getting
intervention.
around 12,000, 13,000 crores are getting cleared. So there is a huge focus, and almost 2.5 lakh plus MSMEs are actually filing their claims in Samadhan portal and seeking payments in Samadhan portal. So they are doing a wonderful work. And Sampark portal is another portal where they are doing a great work in terms of actually job seekers can apply and get that. So these things are all wonderful initiatives that they take in terms of digitization. Apart from that, you have a traditional industry developments, you have cluster development programs, you have RAMP, which is basically improving the MSME performance, World Bank initiative. They are doing wonderful work in terms of huge allocations are being made. Even in this budget, allocation to MSME growth is huge. So the other aspects of MSME bottlenecks are being addressed very, very actively. And state governments are participating very actively in this. They want MSMEs to be very active and they want to grow MSMEs. So I am 100% sure that these things will actually improve. If you look at the contribution to GDP, we keep talking. It's almost 30%. It's almost 1.4 trillion plus is what MSMEs contribute. So naturally, this share is going to grow. So once the share grows, so you cannot have only big companies giving GDP growth. So this share is going to grow. So there will be, their contribution to the overall, Vikasit Bharat 247 is going to be very, very huge as far as my view is concerned. So we see a lot of opportunities in terms for MSMEs. They do a wonderful work. They contribute, and they are also very active in terms of engaging with the government and the stakeholders.
It was wonderful to hear from you, Mr. Rajagopalan, and so many insights we have a better understanding of MSMEs from this session today. Hope our audience also enjoyed today's session. MSMEs are poised for growth. With greater government focus, policy reforms, credit guarantee schemes, technological advancement, and lenders also focusing on MSMEs as critical sector, MSMEs have all going for them and are well positioned to thrive in future. That's it from our side. Thank you so much.